I learned to breathe on a rifle range where the wind spoke in half-truths. In the Corps, they teach you to read the air by what it does to the grass 100 yards out, not by what it does to your face. Years later, after I traded desert dust for beltway pollen and a badge I never talk about at dinner, I forgot that rule in my own kitchen. I listened to how the air felt against my skin. It felt wrong. Too still, like a range wind that had decided to lie. I stood under the pendant light and watched a water ring dry into a halo on the counter. Maya texted me at 8:16, girls' night, loud bar, phone dying, and the house had been obediently quiet ever since. Our dog tags lived in a drawer next to the stove, the marine ones tangled with a challenge coin I carried because the brass looked good beside the past. I hadn't told her all of it. I hadn't told her most of it. Past tense is easier when love trusts you for free. Tonight, love charged interest. The dishwasher clicked like a metronome that hated music. I opened our shared laptop to pay the electric bill and found the browser blooming with tabs like a bouquet you forget to water. A rideshare receipt sat open on the screen. Automatic email, polite font, the kind of thing nobody sees unless the algorithm is bored. Pickup, 9:58 p.m. Drop-off, Merritt and the 12th Garage, downtown. Timestamp, 10:41 p.m. I looked at the date and felt the range wind lie to my face again. That was last Thursday, the night she said the book club ran late in Potomac. Potomac does a lot of things. It doesn't dead end at an office tower garage near the Willard. I told my mouth to be a wall and my hands to be still. In the Corps, when a shot breaks wrong, you don't yank the bolt and make noise. You look through the glass and read the error. I read the error and felt my pulse rehearse old drills: fight, flight, freeze, and choose none. The only thing I ever learned that felt like wisdom was this: if you get to choose clean. At 10:52, my phone lit my palm. A message I had sent an hour before sat above the lock screen like a problem set in elementary math. You headed home or staying with the girls? The read receipt blinked into being like the truth, growing impatient. Scene, 11:08 p.m. Seen while her rideshare history said she had been in a garage 11 minutes earlier. The numbers didn't accuse, they just didn't lie. I set the phone face down and watched my reflection turn into an outline in the black glass of the oven. The outline looked patient. I decided to believe it. I didn't tell Maya I'm an FBI operative. I told Maya I do federal work. And I told the Bureau I had married a woman who loved me. Both statements were technically true. Technical is a word that gets men fired if they use it as a map. I sent a single text to my friend Deacon, call me in the morning, and put the dog tags back in the drawer. The coin spun once on the countertop, rang, and chose a side. Heads. I turned off the light and went to bed with my boots on the floor like I had a plan. I didn't. I had a rule: clean or nothing. Morning made the house look innocent. It's a trick mornings play in cul-de-sacs. Maya came in at 9 wearing a sweater I had bought because the color reminded me of a field in California where we had once been happy on purpose. Her eyes were red, but not from the cold. She kissed the air near my cheek like people do when they want points for attendance. "How's your case?" she asked. The word was a stone tossed into a lake with a shallow bottom. "Ongoing," I said. Then I told a truth she didn't recognize. "I need to brief my boss." I didn't add, "About you?" About me. About the clean path I was going to choose because I still wanted to look at my badge and not see a weapon. She poured coffee and left the cup untouched. "Book club was a mess," she said. "New person brought her husband. He thinks Camus is a verb." I wanted to smile. The part of me that likes jokes reached for purchase and slid off. "Long night?" "Long," she said. The range wind touched the curtains and tried to be convincing. We were in Potomac. Where were you? At home, I said. The dishwasher clicked like it had subpoena authority. I looked at her face and knew the next decision was mine. The Corps taught me that an ignored problem becomes a crater. The Bureau taught me the crater gets paperwork. I was not going to turn my life into a crater for someone else to describe. I'll be late tonight, I said. We'll talk tomorrow. She nodded the way people nod when relief is the only prize they believe they can afford. I kissed the crown of her head and walked out without slogans. In the driveway, the toll transponder on my windshield chirped at a bird flying low, a little machine rehearsing the language of records. Records don't get offended. They just live. I decided to build a life out of them and see what survived. On the way to Quantico, I called my attorney. Not the Bureau's, not the field office counsel. Mine. Ava Kendrick answered while I was still inventing a voicemail. If you're calling me before 10, either you're getting promoted or your heart's on fire. Second thing, I said. Personal, not criminal, and I need to be so clean I squeak. I'm flattered. She took down the skeleton with the speed of a medic who wanted the triage tent to stay open. We don't use your job for anything. We don't use your job for something we could have gotten anyway. You tell your SAC you're recusing yourself from any investigatory temptation in your private life because you'd like to keep eating breakfast in America. Then you and I build a paper trail that wears a tie. I already decided all of that, I said, which wasn't pride, just survival wearing manners. Good, she said. Then go do the decent version of a confession at work and call me when you're out. I'll draft requests for billing, credit, and the amusements of modern life. We'll route everything like normal people who believe in mail. I told my special agent in charge that my personal life was a room where I couldn't be a cop. Jordan Pike had a face that could play poker with weather. He nodded once, signed a form that lived in a folder labeled Ethics in a drawer that probably had a false bottom, and told me to keep him out of the kind of detail that makes an office gossip fun. Stay boring, Hale. Boring keeps you employed. Yes, sir, I said. It sounded like a vow in a church I trusted. Deacon called as I was leaving the building. His voice still had sand in it after all these years. You good? Functional, I said. I need a licensed pair of eyes that belongs to someone not wearing a bureau email address. I'm your licensed anything, Deacon said. He runs a PI shop that looks like a locksmith married a library. Where's the line? Same place as always, I said. No hacking, no trespass, no cameras in people's air. If we can't get it with a subpoena from Ava, we don't get it. I want copies of my own life. Household credit records, joint account statements, anything public that fell off a truck called bureaucracy. If you so much as think about pretending to be curious on the phone, you're fired as my friend. Copy, he said, not offended. You want me to tail? No tails, I said. If a man I don't know sees you following my wife, I'm the one who becomes the problem. We're not a movie. Deacon exhaled like a range flag laying down in the wind. Then we're paper. Paper I can do. Minor twist number 1 arrived as an email labeled trivial. Ava forwarded the rideshare receipt I had left open by accident, paired with a garage statement for the merit and 12th structure. Guess what? She wrote. The garage is keycard only after 10 p.m. and the rideshare drop is the entrance ramp. If a car actually stayed, there's a plate scan. If it didn't, someone walked a short block to the Willard or the Eaton, which would explain the tip geography. In the attachment, a cropped image showed the meter line of a credit charge at 11:04 p.m. to the Willard bar. The amount ended in "on l'oiseau," the way manners do when they want to be math. I felt my breath try to draft a monologue and told it no. The Corps taught me that talking is what you do after the target falls. The Bureau taught me that talking is what gets targets to stand up in the first place. I chose neither. I chose a car, a long drive, and a printer that still used honest paper. At home, Maya watched a show where people sell kitchens they wish had loved them. I said I needed the office, and she gave me a smile that didn't want to learn what offices know. In the spare room, I spread a manila folder and wrote Logan, Maya in the corner, with a pen that still remembered Iraq. The dog tags went on top of the folder like a promise. I printed the rideshare, the garage policy note, and then called my carrier from my personal phone. Ava had generated a request for call detail records and text metadata, mine and our family plan line, which Maya had asked me to pay. Because it's easier. The word easier is a felony in marriages if you say it too often. The rep said 3 to 5 business days for a mailed CD. I asked for paper, not a login. Paper obeys courtrooms. Passwords obey moods. Minor twist number 2 arrived while the printer complained about toner. A shared calendar pinged on my laptop. Book Club, 8:10 now, Potomac. The organizer had added a cheerful comment. New venue next time. Garage validated at the Eaton. I stared at the sentence long enough for it to think it made a point. Potomac is not downtown. The Eaton validates if you drink on their tab. Somebody had decided geography could forgive oath-breaking. Geography can't. It only remembers. Maya walked in and looked at the mess like I had built her a conspiracy. What's all this? Bills, I said, and me pretending I can read them. I can help, she said. The sentence was brave and late. I know where the stamps are, I said, which at any other time would have been the kindest thing I could have said. She watched me like I was a door she wasn't sure was locked. Then she walked away, careful not to move the air. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number that came with a cologne. Colin Pratt. I hear you have questions. Friendly advice. Don't blow up your own life. People talk. My fingers wanted to type a war. I took a screenshot, saved the timestamp, and didn't reply. Then I blocked the number and renamed the photo album where I put the image Noise. Major Twist has a cousin named Restraint. I was practicing for the family reunion. Day 3 gave me the first clean edge. Ava called with the voice she uses when the chessboard went the way she said it would. Your toll records print tomorrow. Garage logs have a plate match for Maya's Volvo 2 weeks ago, overnight at the Eaton. The hotel manager won't confirm occupancy without a subpoena, but we have a whisper from a night supervisor that their bar tab numbers line up with your timeline. Also, your card statement shows a Venmo cash out into a savings account labeled Household. The Venmo handle is Maya Consults, with payment memos that look like consulting for a PR lunch and rideshare back. That's either a euphemism or a career I didn't know your wife had. Major Twist? I asked, because gallows humor is better than the gallows. Discovery Twist, she said. The major ones come later. Authorization willing, I'll issue subpoenas for the Eaton's room folios tied to the Volvo plate and for the bar's merchant copy from that Thursday. Also, your family plan metadata shows a run of green dots called read. At times nobody reads when they're telling the truth about Potomac. Scene 1108, I said. Cute, she said. Keep your phone calm. Don't perform. If she tries to make you the loud thing, be the quiet thing holding paper. I went for a run on a trail that follows a creek long enough to forget a man. I kept my cadence under my breath, counted telephone poles, told my legs to do what my lungs couldn't. Memory visited with its old classroom. A wind call at 800 yards. Instructor behind my shoulder saying, "Don't chase the last shot. Let the range come to you." I let it come. I let it all come. When I got back, Deacon sat on my porch steps with a paper bag that smelled like sanity. "Breakfast tacos," he said, and a pep talk wearing sneakers. "I'm not tailing," I said. "I know," he said, "but I am reading filings. Colin Pratt is a consultant with a firm that bids for a slice of federal work. He travels on a corporate card like it's a passport. If he put a hotel stay on that card, they audit. If they audit, the manager who likes her job more than his mood keeps receipts like rosary beads. I knocked on the door called Public Information and asked for nothing I didn't already own. Then I waited near a coffee shop and hoped gravity existed. The door opened without knocking. Maya stood there in one of my marine t-shirts, the fabric falling in a way that made my memory stupid. Her eyes took Deacon in like a stranger who might be a mirror. "Morning," she said to the air. "Morning," Deacon said. He stood and nodded and left a bag on the steps like an apology. "For both of you," he said to the air. Then he walked down the sidewalk and inspected the sky very closely. Maya waited until his truck turned the corner. "You invite a PI to our house now?" "Deacon is a friend," I said. "And he is the person who keeps me from borrowing tools I'm not allowed to use." "You think I'm cheating," she said, skipping the steps where other people pretend to be furniture. "I think I'm not going to perform an argument you can make into a costume," I said. "I think we can sit at the table at 7 and try English." She laughed a sound that hurt my teeth. "You and your goddamn English." She looked at the street like it had written a caption. 7 then. Minor twist number 3 arrived at noon. Ava forwarded an email. "Miss Tran, Eaton Hotel." The subject line said, "Confirmation of document preservation." The text said the Eaton had placed a hold on room folios and bar charges for the dates in question, pending receipt of a subpoena issued through proper channels. "She doesn't have to do this," Ava wrote. But she did. That means someone told her the truth likes to be kept cold. I read the words twice and felt something that could have been gratitude fall through me, like a coin choosing its slot. At 7, English failed us politely. We sat across from each other with the good water glasses and the bad silence. I put my phone face down on the table like a person auditioning for grace. Maya did the same, but placed hers screen up, because some fights are about gravity and some are about glass. "I don't care about the book club," I said. "I care about last Thursday." Her jaw moved like a puzzle that didn't land. "I told you the book club ran late. Paula had car trouble." "Paula sent a calendar update that says they validate at the Eaton next time," I said. "That garage eats people who only read the wiki." She blinked like the light had decided to compete. "You checking my calendar now?" "It's our calendar," I said. "It's our plan for where the cars live. Thursday, your car lived in a garage downtown. Your phone read a message from me at 11:08, while your receipt rode an elevator near the Willard." That's a lot of nouns for a night that was supposed to be adjectives. She stared at the table and then at me, and then at the space between us, where honesty usually sets up camp. "I needed to feel like someone saw me," she said. "You go for days without blinking. You sleep with your eyes open and call it a mission." "That's not what we're arguing," I said softly, "because the Corps teaches you to keep your voice low when the room echoes. We're not litigating my job tonight. We're litigating geography." "Litigate," she said, tasting the word. "Listen to yourself." She reached for her phone and flipped it face down. "You want the truth? I met Colin for a drink because he listens to me without pretending he's solving a murder. He said he had a room to finish calls. He said it like a man who had been in rooms where people did important things. I walked with him because walking felt like something someone would do in a movie where she isn't a supporting character. We kissed in the elevator, and then we didn't. And then we did. And then I remembered that I was the kind of person who used to walk into kitchens without rehearsing how to lie in them. My breath tried to turn into a fist. I let it be lungs instead. "Did you sleep with him?" "Does it matter?" she asked. "It's the kind of sentence that ends marriages faster than adultery." "Yes," I said. "Because Virginia has rules, and because I choose clean. I won't lie for you to a judge. And I won't make you the bad headline in my career. I will march paper across a table and ask it to do its small job until the big job is finished. That is what I have to offer. Not handcuffs, not noise. Just paper." She folded in on herself without changing shape. "You sound like a witness statement." "I am one," I said. "So are you. So is he. So is the door of an elevator that closed on a story and opened on another one." She stood up, set her glass in the sink without the dignity of a coaster, and walked down the hall. The door to the guest room closed with a softness that felt like skill. I sat there with the quiet and tried not to perform for it. People think Marines learn to fight. You learn to hold your fire. People think agents kick doors. You learn to write things down and spell them right. The subpoenas did their work like polite bulldozers. Within a week, Ava's office had a stack of paper that could have fixed a crooked table. The Eaton sent room folios under seal. Names, dates, a little line that said, "Double occupancy added at 2311 with the note, NC, Manager Auth." The bar attached merchant copies with tip lines too neat to be an accident. The carrier mailed a compact disc because the 21st century is nostalgic that way. The letter inside explained how to interpret column headers for call detail records and messaging metadata. Our bank printed microfilm for card images, like it was proud of its vinyl collection. I learned the opposite of romance in a language made of timestamps. Minor twist number 4 hid in plain sight. A Venmo we hadn't discussed. Maya's handle took in 600 Dopplerters in 3 weeks from a Colin Pratt with memos that read, "Consult, ride shareback, PR lunch refund." If money has a smell, this money smelled like a candle trying too hard. Major twist number 1 arrived stapled to it. A bank transfer from the savings account labeled household into a new account at a different bank under Maya's maiden name. A small sum, legal, but the kind of small sum that looked like a proof of concept. Ava highlighted it and wrote in the margin with a lawyer's pen, "Pattern, not crime. Don't dramatize. Build." When she said build, she meant narrative, not theater. The courts like their stories to wear shoes. Ava drafted a petition that chose words like, "A surgeon chooses scalpels." We asked for dissolution on fault grounds available under state law without decorating the page with adjectives. We included discovery requests for records we already had, because the difference between a copy and an exhibit is a signature. We did not accuse. We presented. Minor twist number 5 was the one that hurt. In the CDR was a flurry of calls on Thursday afternoon between Maya and a number I didn't recognize. Deacon did, because he lives near the part of the earth where secrets jog for cardio. "That's the salon on Old Georgetown," he said. "The one that turns workday wives into date-night tourists." I drove by at lunch like a man who had promised not to tail anybody. I didn't go in. I parked where nobody could make me into a headline and watched women exit with fresh hair that made the afternoon look softer than life. I sat there for 10 minutes and let myself be petty. Then I put that away, because petty doesn't sign pleadings. A message from Ms. Tran at the Eaton eased the pettiness out the door. She had sent our counsel a signed letter under penalty of perjury. On the night in question, she had authorized a double occupancy addition at 2311 for a guest whose name matched Colin's card, after a woman, who answered to Maya, joined him. She had included shift logs and noted that she was making herself available as a reluctant witness because she believed records should outlast mood. Whistleblower wasn't the word. Witness was. But the gravity was the same. Major twist number 2 came from a direction I had refused to court. Colin's firm audited corporate cards quarterly. An internal auditor, for reasons that didn't require my opinion, flagged his Eaton bill as personal in nature, with notes on the bar spend and the double occupancy. The note lived in a spreadsheet that Ava obtained through discovery after we named the firm as a holder of relevant records. It wasn't a scandal. It was arithmetic with a memo line. Arithmetic is loud in rooms where people pretend to whisper. Some nights, I dreamed of a shooting range where the flag wouldn't decide which way to point. The silhouette downrange refused to stand still, and the instructor kept saying the same sentence. Don't chase the last shot. I woke up, counted to 4, breathed to 6, and put my feet on the floor like that was something the Corps had designed. In the mirror, my eyes told me the truth. I looked like a man who wanted to be decent in a decade that wanted content. Our hearing dates sat on a calendar like a holiday nobody threw a parade for. Leading up to it, the house learned new footsteps. Maya moved into the guest room and performed regular hours. She cooked when I was not there and left notes that said things like, I bought detergent, and the plumber came, and we should talk. I waited for talk to mean something more than air vibrating. One night before the hearing, she knocked on the doorframe and stood like the ghost of a decision. Do you still love me? Yes, I said, which was either stupid or honorable. But love is a verb that loses its license after certain facts. She cried without a sound. Silent crying is a talent. You could have ruined me, she said. You could have shown up at my job. You could have told my mother. You could have. I could have, I said. I won't. I'm not a fire. I'm a filing. She laughed the worst laugh I've ever heard. That's the saddest thing. It's the only thing that lets me sleep, I said. And I need to sleep if I'm going to be useful to anyone, including whoever I am on the other side of this. The morning of the hearing, the courthouse steps were colder than the calendar. I wore a suit that fit the way a promise fits. Deacon walked with me to the metal detectors and stopped like he had found a border. You good? I'm going to be, I said. If the judge says poetry, we'll parse it. If the judge says math, we'll count. Ava met us inside with the gentle aggression of a person who sells mercy at retail. We don't grandstand, she said. We present. If opposing counsel performs, let them. The judge knows the difference between theater and a policy. The hearing room looked like a classroom that charged tuition. The bench wore wood like meaning. Maya sat with her attorney 2 rows away and didn't look at me. Colin wasn't there. He was the kind of man who sends money and letters, but not himself. Ms. Tran sat in the back in a suit that made her look like a person who believes in clean laundry. I nodded to her, and she nodded back like the ocean at high tide. Present, not dramatic. The judge asked questions that were not rhetorical. Ava did what she always does. Built a road out of paper that a person could walk across without jumping. She laid out the ride share, the garage policy, the bar receipt, the room folio, the phone metadata, the Venmo pattern, the bank transfer, the corporate audit note. Each was a step. None was a scream. Minor twist number 6 landed when opposing counsel tried to argue that the elevator kiss did not constitute the element at issue. Ms. Tran's letter and the double occupancy record said otherwise. The judge nodded at arithmetic. When it was over, The bench spoke a sentence that will never trend. Spousal support is denied due to adultery as established by clear and convincing evidence, and there is no manifest injustice requiring an award. Distribution shall proceed under equitable factors, but support is off the table. It wasn't thunder. It was a door clicking closed somewhere reliable. Major twist number 3 came quietly, 5 days later. Colin's firm reassigned him to a project so far from D.C. that airplanes had to change time zones twice. A friend of a friend said words like compliance coaching and final written. Nobody lost their job for my benefit. Policy did what policy always wanted to do if you let it. It protected someone's brand from someone else's moods. It was boring. It was good. Maya and I met one last time at a coffee shop that had made a hobby out of hoping for spring. She wore a sweater that fit a different story. I told her I would not oppose a schedule that gave her the holidays her mother couldn't live without. She told me she had rented a place in Arlington that didn't look like a mistake. We each slid papers across the table and initialed, and pretended signatures don't feel like funerals when they go down in ink. Outside, the toll road hummed like a machine that doesn't care how anyone feels. We let it drown out the part where we said goodbye and made it sound noble. I moved into an apartment with a balcony that faced a parking lot and learned to like ordinary sunsets. The badge stayed in its drawer like a power tool you don't take out around children. I told the Bureau what had happened in exactly the number of words the ethics form suggested. They told me to take a day and then come back and do the job. The job didn't change. I still knocked when knocking was on the menu. I still wrote things down like the alphabet owed me money. Deacon came by with a plant that belonged in an office and a bottle that belonged in a story. "You did it clean," he said. "You don't get cake for that, but I brought you cheese." "Will I ever be anything but a filing to people?" I asked. "You're a Marine who learned to shoot the parts of life that deserve precision," he said. "That includes silence." He left, and I sat with the plant until the sun decided to be generous. The apartment smelled like drywall and new keys. I opened the drawer and touched the challenge coin because it knows how to remind me that heads and tails live on the same circle. I almost texted Maya, and then I didn't, because almost is for grenades and marriages. A week later, a letter arrived at my mailbox with a return address from the Eaton. Ms. Tron had written in black ink that didn't apologize. She said the preservation order was lifted and the documents had been returned to their normal lives. And she hoped I understood her intent had been to serve the record, not the gossip. She appended a P.S. about the night supervisor getting promoted because he had a talent for saying no to certain kinds of charm. I wrote her back a thank you on paper so thick it felt like a handshake. People think revenge needs fireworks. Sometimes it needs a stamp. On a Sunday when the air admitted it was February, I drove to a range that permits civilians to remember what breath is for. I wasn't there to practice anything but patience. I lined up a paper silhouette and didn't shoot at it. I watched wind move the grasses beyond it and heard the instructor from a lifetime ago saying, "Don't chase the last shot." I smiled because I wasn't shooting at all, and the sentence still made sense. A man set up 2 lanes down with his kid and taught her ear protection. The kid laughed the way a room forgives itself. I decided to let my life be that room for a while. People online call this kind of thing a revenge story. They want clean edges and loud endings. I don't blame them. I watch the same videos when I can't sleep. Here's the truth I learned in suburban light. Cheating stories don't need fire if paper does its job. Family stories feel like they have villains, but most of the time, they just have people who were tired where they should have been brave. If you need to call it revenge, call it the kind a courthouse can notarize. If you need a cheer, cheers to policy. It isn't romantic, it pays its taxes. I kept the dog tags in the drawer, and the badge on the hook, and the plant alive. I bought new dishes because old ones remember who ate them. I put my phone face down when it rang and let it tell me who I was becoming by what calls I answered. Sometimes the number said Deacon, sometimes Ava. Once it was an unknown that smelled like cologne again. I blocked it and didn't rename the album. Noise is still noise when you print it. You don't have to listen to be familiar. On a Tuesday when it rained like the city had a rehearsal, I met a woman at a diner who could have been a sketch of a future. She asked if I minded that she liked her coffee without apologies. I told her I respected any person who knew what they wanted to do with their mornings. We did not flirt like teenagers. We made a list of books we hate. Later, in the car, I watched the toll transponder glow and thought about all the little machines that keep a story honest, and all the big hearts that wish they didn't have to. When I finally slept 8 hours from midnight to morning, I dreamed about brass. The challenge coin lay on the courthouse steps, reflecting a sky that wasn't arrogant. I picked it up and it didn't ring. It was just warm. I woke up and wrote a sentence on a scrap of paper because I didn't trust the cloud to understand tone. The sentence said, "The loudest revenge is the quiet kind that files itself, and the bravest love is the kind that stops before it lies again." Maybe one day I'll tell someone the full version of the past I never told Maya. The desert, the nights, the wind, the arithmetic of breath. Maybe I won't. Secrets are a kind of violence if you use them as leverage. They're a kind of medicine if you keep them to protect people from your weather. I'm learning the difference. Ava texted me a photo from outside a courthouse in another county. "New client," she wrote. "Similar facts. Found your patience useful." I laughed because patience never knew it was useful. It thinks it's just late. I told her to bill people who think she's expensive until they agree that sleep is cheaper. On evenings when the apartment is a little too quiet, I put on a record that knows how to be sad without getting dramatic. I cook pasta like war never met me. I watch the steam rise and wonder how much of life is water deciding which cloud to become. I fold the napkin like the Corps taught me how to fold flags for people who deserved better than speeches. I eat, I wash, I sleep, I wake. The range wind tells the truth to the grass, whether or not anyone writes it down. Call this a revenge story if you need a label so the algorithm can find it. Slot it next to the other cheating stories on a shelf made of attention spans. I won't fight you, I get it. We like our dramas tidy. But here's my overlay text, the kind I'd print on a thumbnail if I knew how. Leave clean. If you have to leave at all, leave with receipts, leave with timestamps, leave with the dignity of your own hands. Walk down the courthouse steps like they were designed for feet, not cameras. If you walk into your own kitchen and the air lies to your face, you don't have to fight. You don't have to run. There is a third option the movies forget because it doesn't look good on a poster. You can breathe like a rifle range taught you to breathe. Count to 4. Let the wind say its piece, and then move. Move toward paper. Move toward quiet. Move toward a life where you stand up in the morning and your name tastes like something you want to keep. I keep a slip of paper in my wallet now that only says 2 words. Be boring. It sounds like an insult until you remember how expensive chaos is. Some nights, when the rain performs on the glass, I say the names of places I've left and let the syllables teach my body how to travel without a vehicle. There's a rule I write on my hand before court or conflict. Talk after. Paper first. If you're waiting for permission to be decent, imagine the person you'd rather be watching you already is. I don't want to be the man who knows the angles of a scope better than the angles of a conversation. So I practice both. Breath and listening, wind and silence. I keep a slip of paper in my wallet now that only says 2 words. Be boring. It sounds like an insult until you remember how expensive chaos is. Some nights, when the rain performs on the glass, I say the names of places I've left and let the syllables teach my body how to travel without a vehicle. There's a rule I write on my hand before court or conflict. Talk after. Paper first. If you're waiting for permission to be decent, imagine the person you'd rather be watching you already is. I don't want to be the man who knows the angles of a scope better than the angles of a conversation, so I practice both. Breath and listening, wind and silence. I keep a slip of paper in my wallet now that only says 2 words. Be boring. It sounds like an insult until you remember how expensive chaos is. Some nights, when the rain performs on the glass, I say the names of places I've left and let the syllables teach my body how to travel without a vehicle. There's a rule I write on my hand before court or conflict. Talk after. Paper first. If you're waiting for permission to be decent, imagine the person you'd rather be watching you already is. I don't want to be the man who knows the angles of a scope better than the angles of a conversation. So I practice both. Breath and listening, wind and silence.